Let me ask you something honestly. When was the last time you tried to sit down and do something simple? Maybe read a book, write something, finish a project. And about 5 minutes into it, your brain suddenly decided it needed to check your phone for absolutely no reason. Not because it buzzed, not because you got a message, just because your brain said, hey, maybe the internet has something new for you. So you check it, which turns into Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or TikTok. It turns into one reel, and then another one, and then 1,000 more that you send to your spouse, which turns into some guy explaining why you're not successful because you didn't wake up at 4:05 in the morning and drink a mushroom coffee while journaling underneath a Himalayan salt lamp. And before you know it, 20 minutes of your life have disappeared into the digital abyss yet again. Now, the popular explanation for this is that people today just lack discipline, that everyone is just lazy, that we're all just dopamine addicts with the attention span of a caffeinated squirrel. And sure, there's probably a little bit of truth to that, a lot of truth to that. But I think the bigger problem is actually something much simpler. Our brains weren't built for this much noise, not even remotely close. The human brain was built for a much quieter world. For most of human history, information moved incredibly slowly. If you lived even a few hundred years ago, the most exciting piece of news you might hear in a given week was something like, apparently there's a new family that moved into the village and they have goats. That was it. That was breaking news. There was no CNN breaking news alerts. There was no viral content. No guy on the other side of the planet yelling into a microphone about why your mindset is wrong. Should I be offended by that? Your brain dealt with information from your environment, your family, your community, maybe the town you live in. That was the entire information ecosystem. Now, fast forward to today. Before breakfast, you've probably already been exposed to 3 different global news stories, 5 political arguments, someone's vacation video and photo from Greece, a video of a raccoon stealing somebody's sandwich, some guy explaining how he made $4 million with drop shipping, a 19-year-old punk kid explaining how you need to optimize your life, and 12 ads for things you didn't even know existed 5 minutes ago, and now that's all you can think about buying. All of that happened before your coffee finished brewing. Your brain is basically trying to process the entire planet before 9 a.m. And then we're surprised when people feel mentally fried. But the real problem isn't just information, it's how the information is delivered, specifically the infinite scroll. Every social media platform on Earth is built around the same simple psychological trick. Never let the user reach the end. Because if you reach the end, you might stop. And if you stop, you might put your phone down. And if you put your phone down, you might accidentally go outside and touch some grass. And the tech companies obviously cannot allow that level of productivity to happen. So the feed never ends. One video after another, one opinion after another, one tiny dopamine hit after another. Your brain never gets the signal that says, okay, that was the end of the newspaper, we're done now. Instead, it just keeps going forever, which I don't want to even necessarily blame the tech companies. That is their job. You can't be mad at them for being good at what they're doing because we can't stop. That's like being mad at an alcohol company for making something that you like and then you get drunk on it. You have to have the self-control. But it just slowly trains your brain to expect constant novelty, constant stimulation, constant little bursts of entertainment. And once your brain gets used to that level of stimulation, normal life starts to feel unbearably slow. And I feel that now more than ever. And I'm regarded, if you ask anybody that knows me, what's kind of my trait, what am I known for, is patience. I have more patience than anybody. And even in recent years, I have felt patience very thin. So forcing myself, taking that introspective look, okay, you need to slow down. You need to relax. You need to give your brain a break. Reading a book can feel difficult. Writing anything feels absolutely exhausting. Working on some longer project can feel like mental torture. Not because you're incapable of focusing, but because your brain has been trained to expect a brand new stimulus every 10 seconds. And we have to figure out a way to retrain our brains. The other lie the internet has sold is that multitasking is somehow a skill. You hear it all the time. I've talked about it in a previous video. I'm great at multitasking. I thrive in the chaos. I can juggle 10 things at once. No, you can't. Nobody can. That's not real. Multitasking is mostly rapid task switching. I will stand on that. Your brain jumping from one thing to another over and over again while accomplishing slightly less than you would if you had just done one thing at a time. And the reason people feel exhausted after a day like that isn't because they worked any harder. It's because their brain spent the entire day shifting gears. That's why in the air traffic world, you would never work more than 2 hours on position. Like that was a rule. That was procedure. You had to give your brain a break. That level of focus and concentration for that long with people's lives on the line required a break. Same thing with pilots. That's why there's, cabin time or crew time, whatever they call it. They can only be on for a certain amount of hours. And if you've ever I've flown a lot. If you've ever been at the airport and you see the crew show up, but then there's a delay and blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, well, our crew timed out. That's for your safety. You don't want them tired and exhausted. They've been flying all day. You don't want, well, we're ready to go. We can push now. No, don't. That's not good. Imagine trying to drive a car where you had to change gears every 10 seconds. Yeah, maybe you get where you were trying to go eventually, but the whole experience would feel unnecessarily stressful. That's basically what most people's brains are trying to do now. And one of the weird advantages that I have when thinking about this stuff is, like I've talked about at length, 12 years as an air traffic controller. If there's one environment where attention actually matters, it's that one. And I know we like to team up and agree with the pilots, and I love pilots. We didn't have an autopilot in the tower. There wasn't a button we could press that the system would just fly itself. That's not how it worked. You had to be on at all times. That's no disrespect to pilots. They have to do a ridiculous amount and know a ridiculous amount of information. But when you're working traffic, you can't afford to let your mind bounce around between 15 different things every couple of seconds. You have to maintain what we call the picture, the mental map of everything that's happening in your airspace, which airplanes are climbing, which ones are descending, who's in holding, which paths might cross, which ones are about to become a problem. You have to learn to recognize problems far in advance, see what are the contributing factors that are going to lead to an issue down the line. You don't wait for the issue to happen. And that picture has to stay clear in your mind for extended periods of time, because if you lose it, things will go bad quickly. These aircraft are traveling at hundreds of miles an hour. You don't have time to wait around. But air traffic control is not about frantic multitasking. It's actually the opposite. It's calm, sustained focus. You're constantly updating a mental model of what's happening and making small adjustments to keep everything running smoothly. And I think here's the interesting part. Most people are actually capable of that kind of focus. There wasn't some extensive training we got to do it. Yeah, we were all put through the ringer to figure out if you had what it takes, but there's no secret to what we were taught. But the environment that we've created for ourselves now is basically the exact opposite of what the brain needs to maintain it. Instead of quiet, we have constant noise. Instead of depth, we have endless novelty. Instead of finishing things, we have infinite scrolling. The long-term problem with this isn't just distraction, it's fragmentation. Your thoughts become fragmented. Your attention becomes fragmented. Every sense of time that you have becomes fragmented. Because when your day is made up of hundreds of tiny bursts of content, your brain never settles into deeper thinking. And deeper thinking is where the most meaningful progress actually happens. Creative ideas, long-term planning, problem solving. All of those things require sustained attention. They require you to sit with an idea long enough for it to develop. But sustained attention can't compete with a feed that refreshes every 2 seconds. So what do you actually do about this? I'm not going to give you the classic productivity guru advice where you delete all your apps, throw your phone into the ocean, and go live in a cabin while journaling about gratitude. Most of us live in the real world. We need the internet. But there are a few things that actually make a big difference. First, give your brain quiet again. Actual quiet. And not 5 minutes. Not until the next notification. Real stretches of time where you're doing one thing. Reading, writing, working, thinking. Your brain needs time to settle back into deeper focus. Second, stop reacting to every moment of boredom. Boredom used to be normal. I think about this all the time. When I look at my kids and think about how much their childhood is different than mine, we used to be okay with being bored. We were good at being bored. But now people experience boredom for about 12 seconds before grabbing their phone like it's a life support device. Boredom is where a lot of your best ideas actually come from. Your brain needs those empty spaces to function. Third, finish things. The internet trains us to constantly start new things. I'm as guilty of it as anybody. Look at how much I have on my plate and I decided to start a YouTube channel. But the internet tells us to keep trying new things, start new things, do this, new videos, new posts, new tabs. But finish something. A chapter in a book, a task, a project. Finishing things gives your brain closure. And closure is incredibly powerful for maintaining focus. The truth is your attention span probably isn't broken, it's just overloaded. You're asking a brain that evolved to process a small village worth of information to deal with the entire internet every single day. Of course it feels chaotic. Of course it feels exhausting. But the brain is incredibly adaptable. If you start giving it quiet again, if you practice focusing on one thing at a time, if you stop letting every notification hijack your attention, your ability to focus, I believe, will come back surprisingly quick. Because deep down, your brain still knows how to do it. It's like riding a bike. You just haven't given it the opportunity lately. So go. Slow down.